I have the privilege to serve both on the advisory committee to the Viva Trust, which he established, and to the Avena Foundation. There are today more than 1,000 civil society leaders across Latin America who are part of the network created by the Avena Foundation, whose dreams have been supported by the Avena Foundation, and who are actively trying to create both more sustainable communities and more sustainable enterprises to enable those communities. It's a very powerful connection. It's a very powerful vision. And in introducing the themes of the forum, I want to emphasize the extent to which those themes not only define the conditions for development, but shape tomorrow's markets and set the boundaries for human well-being in the future. And it makes sense to begin with cities. We heard an opening from Mayor Diaz describing his dreams for this city, inspiring dreams. We need to recognize that sometime last year, a very symbolic boundary was crossed. The number of people living in cities now exceeds the number of people living outside of cities. Most of us are urban people, and in the future, more and more of us will be. In less than a decade, the number living in cities will exceed 4 billion. In Latin America, nearly 80% of 560 million people live in urban settlements, and within a decade, Latin America will have 68 million people living in 4 megacities of over 10 million. Cities, of course, are concentrated markets, economic engines, sources of innovation, places of inspiration and opportunity, but they are also sources of pollution and disease. Half the urban population in Africa, Asia, Latin America, and the Caribbean suffers from one or more diseases associated with inadequate water and sanitation. Worldwide, approximately 1.7 million people die annually as a result of inadequate water, sanitation, and hygiene. And transportation problems in megacities cause enormous economic losses, dangerous air pollution, massive releases of greenhouse gases driving global warming, as people spend long hours getting to work or trying to move goods. WI is proud to have played a key role in Mexico City's innovative program to attack pollution, congestion, and delays, creating a new bus rapid transit system on Avenida Insurgentes, one of Mexico's busiest and most prestigious streets. The value of the time saved by the 250,000 people who ride that system every day, in addition to the fuel saved, emissions reduced, and lower traffic accident rate, is worth millions of dollars per year to Mexico City. With Mexico City, we've tested a variety of fuels and emission systems for new buses that could reduce pollution by as much as 90% if it were extrapolated to all of Latin America. Changes that would save not only tens of millions of dollars, but thousands of lives. One of the issues that will become a crisis for many of the world's cities, particularly as the world warms and glaciers melt, is water supply. Some 1.1 billion people today lack access to healthy water supply, and more than 2.6 billion lack access to improved sanitation. Water scarcity for household use, industry, and agriculture affects 2 billion people worldwide. Water use is growing, and growing twice as fast as population. The amount of water now impounded behind dams has quadrupled since 1960, and 3 to 6 times as much water is held in reservoirs as flows in natural rivers. Water withdrawals from rivers and lakes doubled since 1960, and most of that water worldwide is used for agriculture, so the growing scarcity is a problem for the production of food. Dryland systems cover about 41% of Earth's land surface, where more than 2 billion people live, but they have only 8% of the world's renewable water supply. Dryland ecosystems experienced the worst poverty and the highest population growth of any area on Earth. They're also among the most insecure places on Earth. And of course, increasingly, the world's water is polluted by agriculture, industry, and human use. Since 1960, the amount of nitrogen we put into ecosystems and ultimately into our water has doubled, and flows of phosphorus have tripled. More than half of all the synthetic nitrogen fertilizer ever used on the planet has been used since 1985. That has been a part of the agricultural revolution that has fed people globally, but it has exacted an enormous cost on freshwater ecosystems. Much of the nitrogen and phosphorus that we add to the environment eventually reaches the sea, where in coastal regions worldwide, it creates eutrophied dead zones where nothing lives. The coastal regions are, of course, not only the source of sustenance and wealth for the bulk of population that live in coastal areas, but biologically have been among the richest and most important. Indeed, oceans sometimes seem like global sacrifice areas. Prodigious sources of food for millennia, ocean ecosystems have begun to collapse. I know that later today you'll hear from one of my heroes in this area of work, Sylvia Earle, who has been raising the alarm on these issues for decades, since, like Stefan, since long before others began to think of it. We have industrial fishing technology that has improved markedly over the recent decades. Investment in heavily subsidized fishing fleets has increased. Nevertheless, for the last 20 years, the harvest of those fleets has declined. Can you imagine if you were in an industry where technology, the productivity of technology improved and capital investment went up, but production went down, not getting the signal that something was fundamentally wrong? Yet we don't get that signal about our oceans. The total biomass of large pelagic fish in the world's oceans has been estimated to have been reduced by 90%. Total biomass has been reduced by 90% due to overfishing, pollution, and destructive practices. Would you talk about that, Sylvia? I won't say more. Coral reefs are a cornerstone of tropical ocean ecosystems, but they too are in decline, affected by pollution, by destructive fishing, coastal development. 58% of coral reefs are within 50 kilometers of a major urban settlement, and now by ocean warming and acidification due to the buildup of CO2 in the atmosphere. What a quintuple threat for coral reefs. 20% of the world's coral reefs are dead, and the majority are in trouble. In the Caribbean region, which earns $25 billion a year from tourism, 2/3 of the reefs are threatened by human activity, and future economic losses due to the degradation are estimated at $350 to $870 million per year. That a sacrifice we're prepared to make, or one we should seek to avoid? And that's before considering the potential impacts of global warming on those reefs.